Hi, you're watching JurisClarity. This is a practical, beginner-level breakdown of India's 4 new labor codes. India consolidated 29 labor laws into 4 codes. In this video, we'll map the big shifts and the compliance checklist every employer and worker should know.
So, to really get a grip on these new codes, you kind of have to ask, why now? Why was this big change even necessary? Well, if you look back, India's labor laws have been built up piece by piece for over a century. A lot of them were written for a totally different era of work. And over the decades, this created, this incredibly complex, tangled web of 29 different central laws. And that old system, it was complicated, often really outdated, and honestly, a huge headache for businesses to comply with. So that's what sparked this massive reform. Today, we're going to break it all down for you. We'll start with the 4 new codes themselves. Then we'll zoom in on the 3 biggest practical changes you'll feel. After that, we'll get into what employers and workers both need to do, see how it all works in the real world, and then we'll take a step back and look at the big picture. All right, let's dive right in. We'll get into the specifics of these 4 new codes, and we're going to start with the one that affects pretty much everyone's wallet. What's in your payslip? Okay, first up, the Code on Wages. This one takes 4 old laws and rolls them into one. Its main job is to simplify and guarantee 2 huge things for every single worker in the country. And I mean everyone, organized or unorganized sector. 1, a legal right to a minimum wage, and 2, the right to get paid on time. This is a massive shift because under the old system, minimum wages only applied to certain specific industries. Now, it's for everybody. Next, we have the Industrial Relations Code. Now, this one is all about streamlining the rules of engagement between employers, employees, and trade unions. It covers the whole shebang, from your conditions of employment to new rules for strikes, which now need a 14-day notice, by the way, and how industrial disputes get sorted out. The goal here is to make the whole process a lot more structured and, well, predictable. The third code, this one is a total game changer for Social Security. It merges 9 previous acts, and for the very first time, it expands that safety net to include gig and platform workers. That's huge. It means benefits like a Provident Fund, which is your retirement savings plan, plus things like insurance and gratuity, are no longer just for traditional employees. It's a big step in catching up with how people actually work today. And finally, we've got the Occupational Safety, Health, and Working Conditions Code, or the OSHWC code for short. This one, as you can guess, is all about the workplace itself. It takes a whopping 13 different laws and combines them into one single unified framework. The aim? To make sure that working conditions are safe and healthy for everyone, no matter where you work, from a factory floor to a corporate office. So when you put it all together, what's the real difference? Let's break down the key shifts. First off, appointment letters are now mandatory for every single worker. That brings a ton of transparency. Social Security goes universal, which is massive, especially for those gig and platform workers who were left out before. The minimum wage, it's now a right for all workers, not just a select few. We're also seeing totally new things, like free annual health checkups for workers over 40. And for businesses, the compliance burden gets a whole lot lighter. But one really important change is for women in the workforce. They can now work night shifts. But, and this is key, only if they agree to it and have guaranteed safety measures in place. Okay, so we've seen the 4 codes. Now let's really zero in on the 3 biggest changes. The ones that are going to have the most immediate, real-world impact on pretty much everyone. The first massive change is this idea of a universal minimum wage. And tied to that, the central government is going to set what's called a national floor wage. Now think of this like a baseline. A safety net. No state government in the country can set its own minimum wage below this national floor. It's all about ensuring a basic level of income for everyone, everywhere. The second big one is something we touched on, finally bringing gig and platform workers into the Social Security fold. The codes actually define what an aggregator is and make them contribute a part of their turnover into a fund for these workers. This is, without a doubt, a landmark step. It's about protecting a huge and fast-growing part of India's workforce that was previously invisible to the law. And third, a radical simplification of compliance. Instead of juggling multiple registrations and filing endless returns, businesses will now have a single registration, a single license, a single return. But the real story here is the shift from an inspector to an inspector-cum-facilitator. Now, this isn't just a new job title. It's a fundamental change in philosophy. The goal is to move away from a gotcha policing role and towards a supportive one, helping and guiding employers to actually comply with the law.
So, what does this actually mean if you're an employer? If you're running a business, big or small, here's a quick checklist of the key things you need to get on top of right away.
Okay, first things first, you have to issue formal appointment letters to all of your workers. That includes contract and temporary staff. Second, get your payroll systems updated to handle the new wage rules and that double overtime pay. Third, you'll need to review your Social Security contributions. The Employees' State Insurance, or ESIC, which covers health benefits, is now pan-India. Fourth, get ready to switch over to the new digital compliance system with that single registration and return. And finally, number 5, and this is crucial, amend your fixed-term employment contracts. FTEs are now eligible for gratuity after just 1 year of service, not 5. That's a big change. Now, on the other side of the coin, these codes bring a whole new set of legally protected rights for workers. It is so important that every single employee knows what they are now entitled to. So listen up. Here's what you need to know about your new rights. First, you now have a legal right to a written appointment letter. You also have a right to Social Security coverage, even if you're a platform or gig worker. If you're a fixed-term employee, you get gratuity after just 1 year. If you're over 40, your employer has to give you a free health checkup every year. You absolutely have the right to be paid on time. And for women, the option to work night shifts is now on the table. But remember, it is 100% your choice, and your employer must guarantee your safety. Okay, so all this theory is one thing, but how does it actually play out in the real world? It gets really interesting when you look at the specifics. So let's bust a couple of common myths, and then we'll walk through a quick case study. So here's a question I'm sure a lot of you have. With all this talk of universal coverage, does this mean that every single person who works, no matter what, now gets things like a provident fund or health insurance through ESI? Well, the short answer is not exactly. It's a bit more nuanced. While coverage has expanded like crazy, it's not a complete blanket rule. For instance, ESIC coverage is now pan-India, and it's mandatory for businesses with even 1 worker if they're in hazardous jobs. But for smaller companies with less than 10 employees, it's still voluntary. It needs both the employer and the employee to agree to it. Okay, here's another one. There's been a lot of talk about decriminalizing offenses. So does this mean that employers can now just get away with violations without any serious consequences? Is it a free-for-all? No, not at all. It's only a partial decriminalization. The idea is to be less harsh for first-time, more minor offenses. Those can now be settled by just paying a monetary penalty. It's a process called compounding. But, and this is a big but, it is not a free pass. If you're a repeat offender within 5 years, you can't just pay a fine. You're going to face much stricter action. To really see how this works in practice, let's imagine a company. We'll call them Innovate IT Solutions. They're a mid-sized software firm, about 150 employees, a mix of permanent staff and fixed-term contractors. So here's a quick before and after snapshot of the immediate changes Innovate IT has to make. Before, they paid salaries by the 10th of the month. Now they have to pay them by the 7th. Before, only permanent staff got appointment letters. Now their contractors have to get one too. Those contractors used to wait 5 years for gratuity. Now they're eligible after just 1. Before, night shifts for women were restricted. Now they can schedule them, but only if they get consent and arrange for safety. And finally, that huge compliance headache of multiple filings all year, that gets replaced by 1 single digital return. All right, for our last section, let's zoom all the way out and look at the big picture. What was the government actually trying to do here versus the real-world things that are going to decide if these massive reforms are a success? The government's goals were pretty clear. Simplify a century's worth of confusing laws, give universal security to workers, and help businesses grow by making it easier to comply. But look, the success of these goals is going to depend completely on how they're implemented. Things like how well that inspector as facilitator role really works in practice, how much awareness is created so workers actually know their new rights, and the specific details of all the rules that get framed, those are the things that will be absolutely critical. And that brings us to the final, really crucial question. Are these codes truly the foundation for India's future-ready workforce? They're a monumental shift on paper, for sure, but the real test is going to be in their execution on the ground.
Labor reforms aren't just about laws, they're about people. Thanks for watching JurisClarity. For the government source links, check the description below. Subscribe for weekly legal explainers and leave a question in the comments. We'll cover it in the next video. Feel free to comment your feedback as well.